Let's start with the elephant in the room. Why do we so often fail to really listen to each other? The answer, more often than not, is emotional reactivity. When someone triggers our anxiety or lands a verbal blow, logic goes out the window, and we're swept up in waves of adrenaline and cortisol, classic fight or flight response. Ever found yourself in a heated exchange, both sides volleying criticisms, feeling like you're in a conversational ping-pong match? That's amygdala hijack in action. But here's the twist. Our true challenge isn't what the other person says, but how we choose to react. Emotional reactivity can turn a simple disagreement into a full-blown battle of the bulge. What if instead you could remain centered, turning even the most provocative moments into opportunities for genuine connection? Why does empathy have such a transformative effect in tough conversations? When people feel threatened, our insecurity gets triggered, and we put up psychological shields, also known as defensive listening. Imagine yourself sitting with a therapist. They don't get defensive when you vent, right? That's because they aren't personally implicated. But with loved ones, the stakes feel higher, so we react. Here's the secret. Empathy is like a psychological permission slip. It says, yes, tell me more. When you listen without judgment, you allow the other person's feelings real to them, even if not factually accurate to be expressed. Isn't that what we all crave? Next time someone is defensive, try reflecting their feelings. You'll find it's both empowering and disarming. Ever been told, you shouldn't feel that way? It rarely works, right? Here's a truth bomb. Feelings are facts to the person experiencing them. The technical term here is subjective reality. When someone is upset, their limbic system floods their body with emotion, making logic hard to access. Now, you might be thinking, but what if they're wrong? Well, let me tell you a story. A friend once accused me of ignoring her needs. My gut reaction was to defend myself, but I paused and said, "Help me understand what you're feeling." Instantly, her defenses dropped. The more we accept emotional experiences as valid, not necessarily factually accurate, but real, the more space there is for real listening and real change. How do you listen when the other person is upset or even attacking you? This is where emotional tolerance comes in. Picture this. Your partner goes on a tirade. You never think of anyone but yourself. Instinctively, you want to argue back or hide. That's your sympathetic nervous system at work. But guess what? Reactivity just pours gasoline on the fire. The real skill is to hold steady, tolerate the spike of anxiety, and resist the urge to fight or flee. What helps? Listen longer than feels comfortable. Try repeating back what you've heard. You'll be surprised sometimes. Just this act is enough to diffuse a brewing storm and recenter the conversation. We've all heard, "Don't get defensive." But that's like telling someone not to think about pink elephants. The real solution? Replace defensiveness with active listening. It's like swapping out a bad snack for a healthier option, behavioral substitution in psychological terms. Try this. Instead of bracing yourself against criticism, lean in, ask for more details. You might say, "Can you give me an example?" This shifts your focus from defending yourself to understanding the other person. Sure, it's uncomfortable at first, but over time, it becomes a new habit, one that calms anxiety and transforms conflict into collaboration. How different would your toughest conversations feel if you just listened longer? Let's get real. Most listening problems are co-created. One person explodes, the other withdraws or counterattacks. These are classic patterns of emotional reactivity and avoidance. Take Tim, who feels battered by Nadine's complaints, or Jane, who feels criticized by Gordon. Both believe the problem is the other's overreaction. But in reality, It's the cycle between them that keeps the conflict alive. Now, you might be thinking, but I can't control the other person. And you're right. You can only control your response. By focusing on your own patterns, are you quick to argue or do you retreat? You begin to break the cycle. The magic happens when one person chooses to listen without falling into old traps. What if you could predict your own triggers in advance? That's where anticipatory coping comes, in a fancy term for planning ahead. Let me tell you a story. Rob, whose second marriage was on the rocks, realized his stepdaughter was a recurring source of tension. So he rehearsed what he'd say next time his wife complained. Simple, open-ended prompts like, "Tell me more." When the moment came, he felt the familiar knot in his stomach, but he stuck to his plan and just listened. The result? Their conversation cooled, and trust started to rebuild. If you know a tough talk is coming, imagine likely scenarios and decide in advance to stay curious rather than reactive. It's a game changer. Here's a puzzle. Why do people sometimes calm down after venting, even if the outburst is uncomfortable? The answer is catharsis, a psychological release of pent-up emotion. Think about a boiling kettle. If you hold the steam in, pressure builds. Let it out, and the system stabilizes. I once watched a couple in therapy. The husband finally got to voice his anger, uninterrupted, and you could actually see his body relax. Now, the hard part is being on the receiving end. How do you keep from getting scorched? Try to hear the feeling underneath the words often hurt, not hostility. By making space for the emotion, you help detoxify the conversation. Nobody likes criticism, especially when it feels like an attack. Yet, as the saying goes, feedback is a gift. But why is it so hard to receive? Our egos are wired for self-preservation. Hello. Negativity bias. The trick is to separate the content from the delivery. When someone says, "You're always late," don't counter with, "Well, you never help out." That's what psychologists call cross-complaining. Instead, listen for the genuine concern. Maybe there's a request buried beneath the accusation. Try reflecting back. "I understand being late is frustrating for you." This shows maturity, responding versus reacting. Over time, you'll notice criticism stings less, and relationships grow stronger. Do you ever feel stuck in an endless loop of old arguments? Here's the surprising truth. Recurring complaints usually signal core concerns, emotional needs that haven't been met. In psychology, we call this a cycle of protest. Think of it like a song on repeat. The melody plays over and over until someone actually listens to the lyrics. Now, you might be thinking, "But I've heard this all before." Exactly. The very repetition is a plea for understanding, not necessarily for fixing. Next time your partner or coworker brings up a familiar gripe, try listening with fresh ears. Sometimes, being heard is the answer in itself. Have you ever wondered where your hot buttons come from? Family systems theory tells us that reactivity often has deep roots in childhood. Were arguments in your family a shouting match, or did everyone retreat to separate corners? These patterns form your emotional legacy. Let me share Peggy's story. She used to get drawn into fierce battles with her critical mother, but when she recognized the old triggers and realized she didn't have to change her mom, only her reaction, she became less reactive and their relationship softened. The lesson? By making peace with our family patterns, we gain control over our present-day responses. What legacy are you carrying and ready to rewrite? Here's a tough pill to swallow. People are who they are, and most don't change just because we want them to. The urge to control or fix others only ramps up reactivity. Acceptance, in psychological terms, is radical self-possession. It means letting go of the fantasy that we can remake our parents, partners, or friends. Imagine the energy you'd save by focusing on your own responses rather than others' behaviors. As Peggy learned, when she stopped fighting her mother's criticism and instead clarified her own perspective, arguments became less toxic. The paradox: the more you accept others, the more relaxed and authentic your relationships become. Ever notice how raising your voice just raises everyone's anxiety? Neuroscience shows that high emotional arousal impairs memory encoding, meaning the only thing people remember from a heated exchange is the emotion, not the message. If you want to be heard, calm down first. It's like tuning a sensitive instrument. The quieter the room, the clearer the note. Before launching into a complaint, check your tone and timing. Maybe preface critical feedback with, "I'm not blaming you, but can we talk about?" And if the issue is truly upsetting, consider writing it down first. Small shifts make a big impact. When you lower your emotional volume, your real message can finally ring out. Here's the final act. When emotional storms brew, remember it's always your move. You can't force others to change, but you can decide how to show up. Self-possession isn't cold detachment, it's grounded presence. Picture this. Instead of escalating or withdrawing, you acknowledge your feelings, choose your timing, and respond deliberately. This is resilience in action, and over time, it ripples through all your relationships. So next time you feel yourself about to react, pause. Ask, what's really being asked here? Or, what does this moment require of me? Every calm, conscious choice you make is a step toward more authentic connection and a more peaceful, powerful you.